It's our first day for our developing Filipino identity in the arts. Okay, for our first topic for today, it is going to be all about cultural mapping. As I said last time, it's all about identifying cultural resources and assets in the community. First, we need to identify all the cultural elements found in this particular community, which is Makati, and then choose a specific traditional or local art forms. For example, painting, drawing, craft, sculpture, what else? Dance, music. So anything that you think can help you, or it's going to be easier for your access. Okay, that can be found here in Makati. Next one is we have also to appreciate your chosen traditional local art forms in our community. I'm going to be asking you some questions and let's see if you can answer it correctly. Are you ready? Okay, here we go. How can we identify ourselves from the other cities or localities here in NCR? Let's talk about cultural mapping. In the creative industry, it is all about identifying cultural resources and assets in the community. Okay, here are the following guide questions that we need to answer after our lesson for today. Number one, what is culture? And number two, what is cultural heritage? You have to identify the different various cultural heritage found here in Makati. I think I'll give you until Monday to work on this one. This is going to be by groups according to your discipline or specialization. Okay, let's talk about community cultural resources and assets. So the community are composed of both intangible and tangible cultural works of arts that can be found in the community. So I'm going to be showing you an example, not in Makati, but for the entire Philippines, representing the various elements in promoting the cultural resources in the city of Baguio. There are lots of cultural heritage that can be found in Baguio. Can you name some or a few of it? Okay, the illustration that I'm about to show you, this is an example that you're going to use to identify and categorize the different various art forms seen in the map for our next activity. Because your first activity with your group mates is you're going to identify the cultural resources and assets in Makati. So you're just going to fill up the following artworks or culture as seen on the picture that I'm showing you right now. You're going to categorize these resources in the form of the example that I already provided. All right. So here is the illustration. What can you observe about the illustration? It can be your own experience. You saw it on YouTube or on you saw it on the picture. It's okay. You have to tell us your experience about this particular um, illustration. So, what are the different cultural resources? Okay. So, right now, I'm going to be showing you a chart, okay? It is called cultural elements that could be found in a community. So, generally, we call it cultural spaces and facilities. It has a subcategories. We have the cultural enterprises. We also have community cultural organizations. We have festival and events, cultural spaces and facilities, natural heritage, And cultural heritage. Cultural enterprises are the following. We have the libraries and archives, museums, music studios. We also have the bookstores, antique dealers, art galleries, breweries, and wineries. Moving on to community cultural organizations, we have art groups. Yep, we have visual for the
Aboriginal,
visual craft, arts and dance,
horticultural,
heritage group, multicultural groups, and a lot more. Next is the festival and events. We have street festivals, we have gallery or studio tours, fairs, food and wine festivals. We also have music festivals. I really love the music festivals here in Poblacion, but it was like the last time I attended it was like 2 years ago. And we also have cultural spaces and facilities. We have performing arts centers or venues. We have religious institutions. We also have food establishments, cinemas, educational centers, cultural centers. Moving on to the next one is another subcategory is the cultural heritage. Okay, as the word itself, cultural heritage, we have the heritage areas or centers or monuments. And the last one, but definitely not the least, we have the natural heritage, wherein you can see the conservation areas, nature centers, local parks, and trails. Okay, so those are the different subcategories of cultural spaces and facilities. First task, you're going to talk about spaces and facilities with your group mates. Let's see if how many you can remember and you have to list it down. Okay. Now, I want you to go to your group mates, group yourselves according to your specialization, and one of your classmates will give you the video link of your discussion. All right. Now you're back. Okay. Now, let's review the different terminologies that we need to focus on. Culture. What is culture? What do you think is culture? Anyone? Okay, culture is comprised characteristics and knowledge of a particular group of people that encompassing language, religion, cuisine, social habits, music and art, which can be seen as a group identify fostered by social patterns unique to the group of people. Culture encompasses food, religion and belief, fashion, language, social rituals and festivities, music and behavior as well. Cultural resources in the community. Cultural heritage and resources are includes the different environmental elements, industrial and vernacular construction. It can be urban or rural settlement. It can be also an intangible elements related to the community activities and the way of life of that particular community. What is the way of life here in Makati? Anyone? Okay, bear in mind that cultural heritage sites contribute to the creation of the community's identity. So when we talk about traditional arts, what is traditional arts? Traditional arts are a part of the culture of a group, people, skills, and knowledge of which are passed down through generations from master craftsmen to apprentices. Apprentices. All right. Those are what we call traditional. You pass on what you know or what your particular community or culture or a group of people have during their time, during their era, and then they pass it down to the new generations. Can you give an example of this one, the traditional arts? Now, moving on to the indigenous arts. When we say indigenous arts, we're focusing on indigenous arts comprise of works of art that mainly use raw and natural materials as medium of their works, such as wood, rock carving, body, painting, or tattoos. Okay, so sculptures also is included pottery, basketry, ceremonial clothing and weaving, decorative or artistic designs or jewelry as well, instruments and weaponry. So, indigenous arts mainly revolve around the subject of nature and the natural elements, and as well as the inexpressions of the religious belief. So we have different examples of what we call the indigenous examples. Okay. So we also have some indigenous musical instruments. We have you already discussed this when you were in grade 7. One, what are the indigenous musical instruments that you can remember when you were in grade 7? Because the grade 7, the focus of music is all musical instruments. The material that they used here is actually bamboos, twigs, pebbles, animal skins, seeds, and seashells, and those kind of stuff. All right. It was magically manipulated, those particular instruments, to create a sound. And these unique instruments used usually in tribal dances and ceremonies. Now, the word is intangible. What is intangible art forms? These are performing arts. This refers to performing arts, oral traditions, living traditions, or living expressions. Local knowledge, social practices, rituals, folklore, language, festive events, and traditional skills inherited from ancestors and passed on to their descendants. It is also include knowledge, practices concerning nature, landscapes, knowledge, and skills to produce traditional craft as well as the instrument. Objects, artifacts, and cultural spaces, communities, groups, and individuals. The performing arts range from vocal and instrumental music, dance, and theater to pantomime, song, verse, and oration. Okay? So that's what we call intangible art. And tangible art form. This one refers to the physical artifacts produced, maintained, and transmitted to generation. They pass it down also to this generation. It includes artistic creation, build heritage such as buildings, monuments, landscapes, books, literary writings, works of arts, artifacts, and physical or tangible products of human creativity that are invested with cultural significance in the community. So the question is, what is the difference between intangible and tangible art forms? What is cultural heritage again? Cultural heritage is an expression, either intangible or tangible, of the ways of living developed by a community and passed on from generation to generation, including customs, practices, places, object, artistic expressions, and values. For example, Baguio City is acknowledged as one of the creative cities of crafts and folk arts of the UNESCO because of its existing Panagbenga Festival dedication to crafts, folk arts, and open spaces for the artist. Now, we are going to focus on your group work, and then you're going to present it to us on Thursday. Okay? So that will be the cultural elements that could be found in the community. After this discussion, after the lesson, you're going to answer the Google Classroom for your very first quiz for this quarter. All right. Good luck to everyone.